Howdy, my name is Isabella Rodriguez. I am in Psych 101, section 523. Here Comes the Sun, an analysis of depression in Little Miss Sunshine from 2006. So, as an introduction, Little Miss Sunshine is a movie about a family that goes on a road trip so that their youngest can participate in a beauty pageant. And among them is this character, Frank, who is a gay man who recently tried to commit suicide and is now having to live under constant supervision of his sister. So because of this, he is staying with their family, and when nobody is able to stay with him, he ends up having to go with them on this trip so that their youngest can participate in the pageant. Now, Frank, my formal diagnosis is that Frank suffers from moderate to severe major depressive disorder. According to the DSM-5, the 5th edition, this falls under the depressive disorder category. I believe that he doesn't fit any of the other depressive disorders because of the nature of how severe he is acting and his age, which leads me to believe that he is suffering from major depressive disorder specifically. So moving on to the context and culture. Although the movie does take place in the US in the year 2006, it's important to talk about what different stigmas and cultures have to do with the disorder as a whole. So in my essay, I go into more detail as to how in England they did a study, and it shows how different places, the amount of stigmatization shows a unresponsive trend between the amount of people identifying as LGBTQ plus and the people who are getting diagnosed for a mental disorder. So we can see that although most people in the LGBTQ community have a mental disorder, it is a very small population of people who have mental disorders that are or do identify as LGBTQ, which only shows us that there are a lot of people who don't get diagnosed as a person who is not heterosexual, probably because of fear and stigma, and that's just in the United States. It's far worse, it can be far worse depending on which area you go, and it can even be better in other places. So moving on, the evidence that Frank displays. First and foremost, he displays a feeling of worthlessness throughout the movie, as well as the obvious suicidal thoughts where the movie starts out. But a non-displayed symptom that Frank has is he doesn't lose cognizance or thought function throughout the movie. One of the DSM-5 explains that one of the symptoms of major depressive disorder is losing cognizance and thought function, but Frank does not appear to have this symptom. In fact, he seems more perceptive than some of his other family members. So finally, for treatment, I would just suggest what they did in the movie, which is family time, supervision, care, and what they didn't express, but therapy. The expected result would be hopeful, and my only concern would be him not being taken seriously or not being honest because of the fact that he is homosexual and the time was not very forgiving. So finally, for a broader perspective, I think it's really important that the movie shows an accurate and realistic portrayal without romanticizing the disorder. And it's very insightful. It mentions mental health without making it the focus of the entire movie, which I also think is important. It's impactful. It got a ton of positive feedback. And I think it's important to have good representation of mental illness in the media. Here's a little quote. And there are my references. So thank you, Professor Boring, for making this semester very good. And I